Hi, this is the optimization transportation final project over the New York City Green Taxi ride sharing data. My name is Christopher Holder.
My name is Yang Chen.
I'm seeing Zhang.
I'm Liang Zhang.
And I'm Kareem Chawat.
So the background of this project is regarding available data for the green taxi service. In the most recent years, Uber, Lyft, and other ride-sharing companies have infiltrated the transportation industry and has offered new services that our previous services have not offered. One of the greatest impacts is the ride sharing, the availability to choose a starting point, an ending point, and what Uber and Lyft have offered in the recent years that the taxi service has not is being able to combine rides to their destinations. And the purpose of this study, this analysis, is to determine if that is also possible with our green taxi service. So the data we're looking at specifically is in mid-Manhattan, these specific regions that you can see in the map on the right. The study is performed on a small sample size of collected data from May 3rd, 2016. This is a Tuesday. This day was specifically chosen because it is a typical weekday. So we expect typical traffic patterns. There is no weekend, no holiday, no vacation traffic that we expect in the sample data. So this is the data that is most uniform across typical days. We additionally broke the data up into 4 time periods over a 24-hour period to indicate morning, afternoon, evening, and nighttime rides. And the data observed is to determine different statistical trends that we can see with ride sharing regarding our green taxi data that's available online.
Well, we select the 5 trips of each sample from the 4 time intervals. None of these trips were paired, and each represents a different tax ride. So there are several drawbacks of if you do not share trips. For example, if you do not share trips, it may be increased carbon emissions and cost to passengers, and it causes longer waiting times due to the tax availability and increased congestion in city centers. Next slide. And there are four constraints for ride pairing. The first one is pickup and drop-off time. We decided that the trips must be within 30 minutes of each other to be considered for pairing. And the second one is pickup and drop-off location. And we decided the trips must be within 0.3 miles of each other to be considered for pairing. And we use the pickup location ID to replace the specific location. So the difference of each pickup location ID is going to be 0 in our Python data processing. And the third one is passenger count. The taxis can only hold a maximum of 4 total passengers. And the last one is trip distance. Trips must be within 0.3 miles of each other to be considered for pairing.
I will introduce the result part of our project. From the result of the paired trips, we can see the figure right, which was made by passing code. We can see that every time paired, so at least 100 trips are unable to be paired with each other, and the 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. block, so the most number of the trips paired together, which makes sense because most people are starting work at this time, and the destination will be close together, I think. For the unpaired trips, we can see that not every trips can have a pair, and most of the taxi trips cannot be paired together, and we see 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. block having the least number of trips able to be paired together.
The results percentage of trip pairs. NYC test data in 2016 was analyzed using optimization methods, linear programming, and integer programming to determine which two nearby test trips can be paired. We used the Python to get the result from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. We get the result 40.2% can be paired. This is the higher percentage of all the 4 time intervals because this is the peak hour. People go from home to office. So 40.2% is the highest paired percentage. And we get the result from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., 24%. And we get the result 30% from 4 p.m. to p.m. and 31.2% from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
So for the sensitivity analysis, if our project was able to be continued and we could continue to work and refine our model and our analysis techniques, something important that we should do is try to figure out which one of our 4 constraints is the most important and will cause the most discrepancy in the number of trips that are able to be paired together. So just to recap, the 4 constraints that we used were the pickup and drop off time. In our original model, we decided that trips had to be a minimum of within 30 minutes of each other. So if we were to conduct a sensitivity analysis, we would play around with that constraint time period. So we would see what would happen if we decreased that to 20 minutes or 10 minutes, or if we increased it to 45 minutes or even an hour, and see how that would affect the number of trips. Normally, if we would increase that time period, we'd be able to pair more taxi trips. If you decreased it, less trips would be able to be paired. So we'd have to figure out how long are passengers willing to wait to share rides with one another, given the benefits that they show. Another part of the sensitivity analysis that we could think about is if we rolled out new taxi cabs in New York City and increased the number of passengers that we were able to accommodate. So right now, the cars are able to hold 5 people, one of whom being the driver, so that leaves 4 spots for passengers. If we were able to increase the fleet capacity to have cars that hold 6 passengers instead of 4, that would increase the possibility for ride sharing. And we could see how that data played out and see how that would affect our model and how many rides would be able to be paired. This analysis also took into account rides within Midtown Manhattan in the zone talked previously. So it would be good information to check other zones within Manhattan and also within the other 5 boroughs. And finally, our trip distance and the drop-off and pickup locations were limited to be within about 1/3 of a mile of each other. So what would happen if we decreased that to 0.2 or 0.1 miles, or if we increased it? All of these will have an effect on the total number of trips that were able to be paired together, as well as the percentage of the total overall trips. So it would be interesting to see how these constraints played if we changed them a little bit. And in conclusion, from our analysis, from our model, there's a lot of potential for ride sharing for taxis in New York City. Overall, we were able to, with our constraints, able to pair about 1/3 of the total trips together within our sample, which is a significant number. Implementing this system within the city would help us decrease congestion in Midtown Manhattan. It would decrease trip times and decrease the total carbon emitted from taxi cabs, because if you're sharing rides, you have 1 car doing the same thing that 2 or even 3 cars are doing before. So these are all potential benefits of ride sharing and how it can be a net benefit to both the passengers and the city.